Something interesting within advanced conversational hypnosis sessions is that you can utilize anything. One of the things Erickson was famous for was being able to take anything that the client presented within a session and be able to make that a part of the therapeutic process. And we can do something very similar within our sessions as well. And within any context, there are going to be predominant religious and philosophical beliefs. And I think that it's very important for anybody who's practicing regularly to get familiar with the different major religious beliefs. You don't have to become an expert in them, but you want to get really clear on some of the major positions within it, where there are areas that are absolutely solid, like everybody who's going to be following that religion is going to believe it, and then areas where there is more flexibility. Because these ideas often come up as resources and as problems within a session. So for example, someone might talk about the strength of the Holy Spirit, like as a positive resource, something that they feel like they can genuinely rely on in the future, to the point where if you say like, well, what if X, Y, and Z happens in the future? They can say with conviction, like, yeah, I do believe that I can just depend on the Holy Spirit. Now, what are they saying at that point? Is it similar to someone who says that, well, what if this difficult thing happens in the future? Well, I know that I can just practice being less controlling. I can go with the flow. I don't have to control the outcome. Is it that different? Maybe, maybe not. But it functions very similarly in terms of it's a positive resource they can use. Other times, religious beliefs can become a hindrance. I experienced this a lot with my work with couples. A lot of people have very strong religious beliefs around whether or not they're allowed to get divorced, even in the face of pretty severe abuse in the relationship. And so knowing how different religions teach that and which subgroups within it are more flexible and lenient toward it or not can be incredibly helpful. And that helps you kind of know whether there's more value in working with a specific religious belief that they present you or in potentially challenging it. And most people don't like to be challenged on their religious beliefs. So that's where I think ACH actually works very well, is that it's much more of a questioning thing, just being very curious about how that belief actually works in their mind, what type of evidence structure they have for maintaining that belief. And that doesn't mean that we're expecting them to be super adept at explaining or justifying their religious beliefs. They absolutely don't have to be. And that's the other point to this, is get familiar with all of them so that you can be less judgmental as well. I think that a lot of people are, if they're honest, they want to be able to just hand wave off any talk of religion. It's like, well, that's not what we're doing right now. And I get that impulse, but those things are not going away. If a core objection they have to their own healing is tied back to religious belief they have, you just saying, well, we're not discussing religion as part of my work, we're using a different framework, doesn't magically get rid of that knot or that objection. And so you have to be able to approach it very humbly. You have to be able to approach it with an open mindset. And you have to approach it with some familiarity, because if they feel like you're learning about it all for the first time, they're going to be a little bit less open to you guiding them through thinking it through. Whereas if you're able to say, well, what about this verse in the Quran that talks about that? Or what about this verse in the book of Job that talks about that? That gets you a lot of credibility in people's experience. And so one of the most helpful things that you can do to expand your skill set as a practitioner isn't just to drill the core skills over and over and over again, but is also to learn about the broader world. Because I used religion as an example in this, but imagine you're talking to a lawyer. If you have some familiarity with the law, there are different concepts in there that are incredibly powerful that you can use to negotiate with your client's unconscious mind. Same thing with firefighters, same things with doctors, same thing with educators. Like anything that you can get familiar with that is a core part of how people operate is extremely helpful. And all of it can be utilized within a session. So sometimes, yes, it's great to keep learning about hypnosis, the unconscious mind. But sometimes it's best to just go and learn about the world, because that is the same shared world that you and your client are both operating in. And we are learning from the same world. So the more overlap that you can already have with understanding how your client thinks without having to ask every tiny little question, the better equipped you'll be able to be to just jump into their world sooner, understand the contours, the layouts, and know exactly what questions to ask next.